Resources will be on the screen, but if you wish to have the attachment after, feel free to email us at learn@valleybeitmidrash.org, and we will send you those sources via attachment as well. So thank you for joining. Again, others will be trickling in. Rabbi Yitzchak Evan-Shayish from the Beit HaRav Kook in Yerushalayim, in the holy city of Jerusalem. Very excited to continue. So Rabbi, please take it away.
Shalom Aleichem, Chaverim, and haorot, and everybody. So maybe we just do a quick hello. It's a small circle, just hello and where you are, and then we'll enter the text.
Great. This is Shmuley. I'm here in Arizona. Yehuda, you want us to go next?
Shalom, Yehuda. I live in Phoenix. Nice to see you.
Glad you're here, Yehuda. Okay, Reb Nachum.
Hi, I'm Nachum Twersky. I live in New York City, Manhattan. By my surname, I have some Hasidic roots and interested in the connection that I'm told that Rav Kook had to some of my family early on.
That's oh, great.
Great.
Well, wonderful.
I see Lauren. Lauren had a technological difficulty. She'll be back, I guess. Eddie.
There we go.
Shalom, my name's Eddie. I'm here from Phoenix. My great mentor, Rev Shmuley, invited me to this great class, so I'm excited to be a part of this.
All right. So
Great.
good.
Okay,
Anybody
Lauren
else?
Blatt. Lauren Blatt, you want to say hello?
Hi, Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Yes. Hello from Toronto.
Oh,
No
good.
snow, nice and sunny, -6 Celsius. Not so bad.
Toronto,
Hello, all.
Canada. Great.
Toronto's a bit. I was from 1960 till most of the 1970s. I lived in Toronto.
Wow.
What's your name?
Yitzchak Marmerstein.
The name rings a bell. Did you teach it, associate it?
No, I went to afternoon school there though for a little bit in the 60s.
Wow.
Did you know Mr. Blatt? My father taught it associated.
Yeah. No, but I lived across the street. I was living on Neptune, so I associated with part of my life.
Okay,
So but my
we lived
favorite
on
part of my
Haddington.
yeah, but I was born in Israel, and I was so glad every time I returned here. I've come back about 3 or 4 times over my life so far, and it's always good to be back here. And as I explained last week, the teachings of Rav Kook, as I was starting to, as an only child of Holocaust survivors, wanting to know where is the light in the world, where's the illumination? And when I started to read Rav Kook, it became clear that this is an illuminated teacher of Torah. And, one can't even say enough to describe his gadlut. So let's just enter his teachings, Yashar. And we're doing a thematic presentation, but I always want to begin by, and I will begin with a poem each time. Et hatov ani choshek, בגאון רהביו יקסימני, שפתיו שושנים אני חושק, מראה הודו ירהיבני. It's the good that I desire, its glorious expanses entrance me. Its lips, its roses I kiss, its beautiful vision exalts me. הטוב המוחלט, בלי די, באין קץ ומיצר וגבול, שאיננו נבדל מכל חי שמכשיר בחסדו kol pasul. Absolute good, without limitation, without end, constriction, or boundary, that is not separate from anything, from anyone alive, and with its love fixes everything broken. And literally, she'machshir bechasdo kol pasul, that makes with its chesed, makes kosher with its chesed everything that is pasul, blemished. Hatov li gam lakol tov belo ra ukfada tov maleh hanaa lakol maleh shalva be'en charada. Good for me, good for all, good without bad or tightness, good full of pleasure for all, full of tranquility without anxiety. Tov lanetzach, tov l'sha'a, tov l'chol am ve'am, hatzofeh l'tova ve'lo l'ra'a ve'or ve'chedva, ba'asher hu sham. Good forever, good right now, good for every people and nation, for all who seek for the good and not for the bad, and the light and the delight, as the one is there, ba'asher hu sham. Tov lanetzach, tov l'sha'a, tov l'chol am ve'am, hatzofeh l'tova ve'lo l'ra'a ve'or ve'chedva, ba'asher hu sham. So may we be blessed that our learning contribute to the tikkun olam that Rav Kook calls for and describes, where we really have bringing good forever, good right now for every people and nation, and that all humankind will then seek the good and the light and the delight, ba'asher hu sham, because the one is there. And that verse, ba'asher hu sham, is when Ishmael, Hagar, the stranger, she wasn't even named, didn't even give her a proper name, right? The name Hagar is just the stranger. With Ishmael were thrust out with not enough to drink and eat, and then she couldn't stand to hear his cries, and so she put him afar and she burst into tears. And then the Torah says, and God heard the sound of that child, the call of that child, and the angel said to Hagar, what, don't fear, ki shama Elohim et kol ha'na'ar, God heard, Elohim heard the call of the child, ba'asher hu sham, as he is there, because God, ba'asher hu sham. And that's, of course, the line that Rav Kook is bringing at the end here. Good for every people and nation, because God is hearing the call of all the children crying of all the nations, as he heard the cry of the children of Ishmael. And this poem brings me to a text, which is, I have it right in front here. This is a letter that Rav Kook wrote in 1908 to a rabbi in Europe. And the rabbi asked him, well, what is our attitude about other religions? So Rav Kook said like this, so here it is. Al dat ha'emunot hazarot, about the strange religions, Omer lekahai, to your honor, kvodo gadol et da'ati. I want to tell you my opinion. Ki lo havza'atan v'harisatan hi matarat oram shel Israel. That the purpose of Israel is not to swallow them or to destroy them. Just like we are not intending destruction for the nation or for the world or any nation. We want their repair and their elevation. Hasarat sigehem, to remove their dross. Umimele yitztarfu bezel makor Israel, and then they'll certainly join the source of Israel. The hashpia aleim tlalei haorot, to bring upon them dews of light. As it says, "V'hasiroti damav mipi v'shikutzeni miben sheinav v'nishar gamhu le'elokenu." It's a quote from Zechariah. I will purge the blood from your mouth and the abominations from between your teeth, and you too shall remain for our God, as Zechariah says. We'll clarify them. And this is what we teach even with the idolatrous cults. וקל וחומר בדתות הנסמכות בחלק מיסודותיהן על אור תורת ישראל, and even more so, it's a kal v'chomer, halachically, in those religions that are partially based on the light of the Torah of Israel, that is Islam, in historical order, Christianity and Islam. And he says, Gdolim divrei hagra. What the Vilna Gaon said here is very important. On the pasuk where it says, "Ve'esav saneti," I hated Esav. Et hatafel le'esav. The Medrash says, and the quote is from Esav, I hated, from Melachi. It's at the beginning of Melachi. And Esav I hated, it's a reference to, the Midrash says, et hatefel le'esav, the externals of Esav. Aval ikaro, his essence, Yehu Rosho, that is his head, bahadei ava'an de alma ganis, it's buried with the ancestors, right? The Midrash is that Esav's head rolled and is buried in with Avraham and Sarah and everybody in Hebron. That's the Midrash. Al Kain. And therefore, when Jacob reunited with Esav after 22 years of exile, where Jacob was in exile and then he returned to Israel, and he was fearing Esav, and what happened was they hugged and they kissed, and then it says, Jacob says, this is where Rav Kook is quoting, Ra'iti panecha kirot pnei Elokim. Seeing your face is like seeing the face of Elokim. And here Rav Kook says, I think, one of the most important statements of all the important statements that he made in terms of prophecy and direction for us. So with your permission, Jacob said upon reuniting with Esav, seeing your face is like seeing the face of Elokim. And Rav Kook said that this is what Amar Isha Emet, Yaakov Ish Tam. This was, wait, can you see? Oh, you can't see my marker. Oh, yes, you can. Aval Ikaro Shehu Rosh. That's what Jacob, the man of truth, Jacob, the Ish Tam, the Tmimut, the man of purity, said. And here Rav Kook speaks in prophetically. V'dvaro lo yashuv rekam. These words will not go down empty, will not go as a vain utterance. Ve'ahavat achim shel Esav v'Yaakov. The brotherly love of Esav and Yaakov, Christianity, Judaism, shel Itzchak ve'Ishmael, of Yitzchak and Ishmael, the Ishmaelite world, and in Yitzchak, who buried Avraham together in Hebron. The brotherly love of Esav and Yaakov, who are twin brothers, Yitzchak and Ishmael are half brothers. Ta'aleh al kol otana mehumot, will rise up on all those disturbances. And what makes this so amazing is this is the word mehumot that is used in modern day Israel to describe the disturbances. There was mehumot today in Ramallah. There was mehumot today in Hebron. That the brotherly love of Esav and Yaakov, of Yitzchak and Ishmael, is going to overcome all of those disturbances. Sheharish'ah hanichrechet betumat hagviyah garera otan, that are resha, that are evil, because we're caught up in the toxicity of physicality, caused us. We're just caught in these physical frames, and the impulses of our physicality are ruling us, and so we're trapped in war. But the brotherly love, titgaber aleihen, this will ta'ale al kol otan ha'mehomot, it'll overcome all these disturbances, it'll titgaber aleihen, and it'll overpower them, v'tihafchan le'or ve'lechesed olam, and transform it to light and compassion always. דעה רחבה זאת ממותקת במותקה ודבשה של תורת אמת. This expanded understanding, this broad understanding, sweetened by the sweet honey of the Torah of truth, which is Kabbalah, the Torah of the secrets coming out, צריכה להתלוות עם כל אורחותינו באחרית הימים, has to accompany everything we do, all our decisions, all our policies in the end of days. This understanding that this is the process of history, this needs to direct us in the end of days. Lemechtam oraita behechala de malka meshicha, to stamp the Torah, to seal the Torah with the stamp of the messianic stamp. Behafichat marira lematika vechashucha lenahora, by transforming the bitter to sweetness and the darkness to light. This, the brotherly love, and here's Rav Kook's prophecy, straight from the Ben Zion Boxer, Zichrono Livracha. Jacob said upon seeing Esau, seeing you is like seeing the face of God. These words will not go down as a vain utterance. The brotherly love of Esau and Jacob, Yitzchak and Ishmael, will assert itself above all the confusion. It will overcome and transform everything to eternal light and compassion. And this broad concept, sweetened by the enlightenment of the true teaching of the Torah, has to be our guide in all our ways in the end of days, to complete, to seal our understanding of the Torah with the imprint of the Mashiach, turning the bitter to sweet and darkness to light. And may we be blessed to be agents to bring about this is the full understanding of the Torah. Rav Kook is implying, not even implying, he's saying directly, our understanding of the Torah is not complete until we understand that this is what the Torah is about. And he says, this is, in our days, this is the agenda. And this is the, so may we be blessed to really bring this about very, very soon. And now I want to, with your permission, and go to the thematic process that we started last week. And basically, we identified that Rav Nazir, Rav Kook's most significant student, who here he is as an elder, who in 1923, he asked Rav Kook, it's clear that there's extraordinary illumination with you. Is there also a methodology, shita, tochen limudi mesuyam, a content of learning? And Rav Kook said, certainly. And he gave the Nazir in 1922 these 8 notebooks. The Nazir then sat down with that he had been writing from 1904 till 1919. And he sat down There's a question of what was Rav Kook's relationship with leaders of others' faith. Very friendly. There's lots of pictures of him in special occasions, and he got along fine. When the Mufti showed up on the scene, though, Rav Kook was the main enemy, the main spokesperson against the Mufti. So that's in relation to Rabbi Shmuly's question. Okay, so the Nazir sat down and he looked at Rav Kook's, at that opus, which is much of Rav Kook's most creative writing, and he said there's 5 foundational principles that we can find in it, and they are HaKodesh HaKlali. There's a universal holiness that we covered last week. To HaChayut HaOlamit, the eternality of life, but I'm going to translate that a little differently in a moment. The third one, HaAchdut HaKolelet, the all-inclusive oneness. HaTov HaKlali, the universal good. Hit'alut HaOlam, the elevation of the world. The teaching is that the world is in a constant process of elevation. Everything is holy, everything is alive, everything is one, everything is good, everything is in a process of elevation. And the question about Rav Tzvi Yehuda's, that's a long question. We can continue later. He didn't distort anything. That's actually that's actually unfair. The Rav Nazir was Rav Kook's Talmid Muvhak. Tzvi Yehuda was Rav Kook's son, and he put out many of his writings. But his most mystical writings, that was through the Nazir. Tzvi Yehuda put out haorot, which are Rav Kook's prophetic writings about Israel. So the relationship between them is a wonderful relationship. And as he was putting together haorot HaKodesh, well, during Rav Kook's lifetime, he processed it with Rav Kook. But after Rav Kook's lifetime, he processed it with the Nazir and Rav Charlap, and they were processing all these. Okay, so
Rav Yitzchak, sorry to jump in just quickly. Okay. When I said distort, what I've often heard is that Rav Tzvi Yehuda diminished or downplayed Rav Kook's universalism. Is that not true?
No, it's not true. You can find lots of places where he speaks about it. If you meet the Tzvi Yehuda of the what's that book? Which rabbi that visited the 7.5 mystics? What happened was that in 1967, suddenly the 6-Day War, which Tzvi Yehuda was the prophet of the 6-Day War, so then he put all the energy of the Dati Lumi world into returning to Yehuda v'Shomron. That was Tzvi Yehuda's direction, and Rav Kook would have done the same thing, but it wasn't. Like they were coexisting, but that's what he put the focus into because of how history unfolded. Okay, so, but last time, universal holiness, and I want to go by, and it's actually much better to ask me questions by speaking than chat, if that's possible. Okay, so I want to go to the last one. No, I want to go to over here. Yeah. The last piece, which we just touched on at the end of last week, of the first level, all is holiness, and that says that the final victory in the world, nitzchon hakodesh be'olam, sof kol sof, yinatzeach hakodesh et ha'olam. Finally, the holy will be victorious in the world. And holiness will be at the head of all our desires and the basis of all our histories. And then And as we grow, our well springs are blessed, our words are refined, souls rejoice in their own personal gardens of Eden, spirits are jubilant in their foundation, and we're crowned with more and more kindness, life calmly, and with sweetness and calm and sweet refinement is lengthened. We live life satiated, and from the highest delights go forth, and all of the world is established, culture grows, knowledge develops, and the call of Elohim is heard completely. The glory of wisdom and compassion, the beauty of the world, its goodness and recognized, and we glorify, adorn Hashem, we purify life from all its toxicity, we strengthen all our hearts from all their crookedness, we rise to the highest heights, and without fear or trembling, we are then beautified with eternal confidence and tranquility, and then the light is expanded, and we express ourselves in song, wisdom, strength, beauty, and might, and all creatures, all human beings, and all life, we become beloved one to the other. Peace develops and is built among individuals and nations. And this also extends to all the animals of the field and all that crawls upon the earth. The hosts above and below all speak of glory. Hashalom holech v'nivna. Peace goes forth and is built beyechidim uleumim, in individuals and nations, and also expands to all the animals of the field and the crawling things and the hosts above and below. So may we be blessed to experience this and to be agents to bring history to the point of Hashalom holech v'nivna beyechidim uleumim, that peace will be built and created among individuals and nations. Bimhera beyamenu. And that is the last piece in the section of HaKodesh HaOlamit. And now the second section is entitled HaChayut HaElohit HaChayut HaElohit HaOlamit, the godly Olamit, Olam, universal Chayut, livingness. It's awkward to translate, the universal divine aliveness. I translate it differently each time, it seems, but it's what it's describing is that there is, the world is embedded in the world is HaChayut HaElohit HaOlamit, the godly universal aliveness, livingness. And so what does that mean? I just want to show you now one thing about how, well here, so the Nazir put together in the introductory page to this section, which I'll show you the structure here. So here I'll show you where we're choosing from. You see here, Ma'amar Sheni, HaChayut HaOlamit, the universal aliveness, and it's divided into three portions. Chayut Elohit Olamit, Nishmat HaOlam, and Chaim Ad HaOlam. There are 42 pieces of Rav Kook that he draws on, and that's the entire section. And he took from Rav Kook's notebook and put them together thematically, building on this thematic framework. And he titles the second principle is HaChayut HaOlamit, Ma'arechet HaChayut HaOlamit, the system, the structure of the universal aliveness. So what does that mean? I mean, the easy, simple way to say is that everything alive. And in the introduction in it is that it's there's a differentiation made between Kodesh and HaChayut. Kodesh is the external energy. HaChayut is the inner energy, the unseen, that is heard, and Kedusha is a light that is seen. So it's the connection between the principle of the Kodesh is that everything is holy, encompassed in holiness. The HaChayut is everything is embedded internally with an inner HaChayut, a livingness.
So if you're asking us to speak out, is that not synonymous with panentheism? Shmuley brought it up last week. And if it's not, how do you differentiate between what Rav Kook is espousing and what superficially I might understand as something that's panentheistic?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can send you, I'll find the link. Somebody did like an in-depth article about that I read in the last few days. And so he integrates, well, so I'm not going to try to answer that right now, except let's hear what he says and then judge if it's what sort of theism it is. But that there's an essay that really addresses that in detail, and it's I can send you the link, and it's probably easy to find. All right, so now we're going to enter these selections from these pieces, from a few of them, that tries to give a picture of the whole area. But we're going to begin with the Nazir's facing page in Orot HaKodesh, which was the and he starts off with a quote from Yeshayahu, Kital orot talcha, because the dew of lights is your dew. For your dew is like the dew on fresh growth, Yeshayahu said about God. And then he quotes the Idra Rabbah and the Idra Zuta, where it says that, to save time, I'm going to go straight into the Hebrew translation, which is the English as well here. Notef tal kol yom, there's a drip dew, D-E-W, is dripping all day, each day, lemakom shenikra shamayim, to a place that's called heaven, shamayim, ubo atidim hametim leitorer ba'atid, and in it the dead are brought to life, are destined to be brought to life in the future. Umahu mi'ahu tal, and from that same dew, nizonim gama kdoshim elyonim, the holy supernal one's energies are sustained. Ruach yotzet mi'amoach asatum, spirit comes out of the sealed brain, venikra ruach chaim, and is called the spirit of life. That's the quote that the Nazir builds this whole section on, that the HaChayut HaOlamit is this dew that is giving life to life and is dripping throughout life, and this is Ruach HaChaim, the seal of life. And okay, and then what Rabbi Nazir does, he summarizes using the headings that he names, gives the entire scope. So he says like this: HaChayut Elohit Olamit, and this is all Rav Kook's language, woven together by the Nazir. The universal divine aliveness, who Shefa Elyon, is a supernal flow, Hanikshav, that can be heard. It's not seen. He said the Kedusha is seen as an or sameach, a joyous light. This is something that is heard kegilui otiyot ruchaniot, in the revelation of spiritual letters, benishmat ha'adam, in the human soul, hadavek b'chei haolamim, who is cleaving to the life of all worlds. So this chayut elohit haolamit can be heard in the human soul and in some form of communication. There's a large discussion what otiyot ruchaniot but it's all about the process of, and we can look at some of that, all about the process of consciousness coming down to Malchut and forming ideas and words. So that whole process is a revelatory process of the human soul that is cleaving to Chei HaOlamim. And then the second section in it, Nishmat HaOlam, and these names are found on the Seder headings, the subsections. Nishmat HaOlam, the soul of the world, just like there is the universal divine aliveness that's, I suppose, transcendental and it's universal, Nishmat HaOlam, but the soul of the world, Ha'atzilit, the emanated world, is the spirit of life, merkazim, that is merakez, that is focused, central, organic, retzoniim, and willful. We are ruach hachaim, we are put together as organic agents of will. Our ratzon is here, larutz et haaretz, and so on. Shehem shotfim v'shoafim, that are cleaving to the source of life forever. And so that's the, all right, so let's just read quickly a few sections. Ziv HaChayut HaOlamit, Ziv Ora Elohim, the glow of the light of Elohim, HaMemale et kol haolamim kulam, that fills all the worlds, Mechaye u'merave odam, Mideshen Noam Elyon Shel Mekor HaChaim. It enlivens and quenches all the worlds from the supernal delight of the source of life. Hu noten chel b'neshamot, it gives strength to the souls, into the angels, and to all creation, so that we can lachush, we can really sense the inner sense of life. And thus, Edenic drops, netafei adanim olchim umitaptapim. Edenic drops go forth, meshaprim et hachaim kulam, they're improving, dripping, improving all life. And this mitziut kula, this entire existence, yeshla bishvil kach oto ahor v'azorah, it all has the same light and illumination, a mavhikaleh, that is shining upon it, mi otzar hatov, from the treasure of good, shel mekor chei olamim, that is the source of the life of all the worlds. And so and I'm going to cut things short because I see I'm going to flip into the English quite directly, but with you guys, you'll be able to see both texts, but just to get the ideas. So he says, and we have to understand that the Mekor Hagalim Aruchanim, that the core spiritual waves, the spiritual energy that's moving us, the soul of the individual and the world soul, is all an inner effort. While everything makes an effort to harmonize with the flow of the infinite light, the Hatim El Shifat Or Ein Sof. Our whole effort here of our life energy is to harmonize with the infinite life. And when we harmonize with the infinite life, Nachat Ruach Shotef V'Holech B'Chol HaShvilim, then tranquility of spirit flows in all our paths of life and all our existence. Or Choshel HaChaim V'Havaya Kula, Nachat Ruach, tranquility of spirit. And we have to understand that, and we're being communicated to, waves from the higher realm act on our souls. The stirrings of our souls are the result of the sounds released by the violin of our souls as it listens to the echo of the sound emanating from the divine realm. We can hear the emanation from the divine realm. We don't know how to delimit it. We don't know how to put it into form, but it's a whole process, and we hear it as words, and we can't discern them. But all our endeavor in Torah and science is to clarify whatever is comprehensibility it's possible to distill from this divine voice that's always reverberating in our inner ear. And that's, as we do that, we'll grow. And so perhaps, and then we have to understand that we have tremendous influence in the world, that we can use our power of hashpa'ah in order to really effect great change. Not only does the world act on us, we even more act on the world. And I want to finish with this prose poem that gives a picture of what the glow of life is like. Okay. So we'll finish with this poem. Ziv HaChaim, the glow of life. Omeret lanu harazayot, the secret realm tells us, Ba'olam maleh shel or v'shel chaim atem shruim. In a life, in a world full of light and life, you are dwelling. You live in a world full of life, light and life. Da'u et hayeshut hagdola, et ashirut hametziut, she'atem tamid nifkashim ba. Know this great reality, this richness of existence that we are always encountering. Histaklu begodla betifarta bedaikanuta ubechavruutiyuta. Contemplate its grandeur, its beauty, its precision, its harmony. Hayu mechubarim lahalijonim achaim. Be attached to the living legions of living beings. Hapo'alim tamid kol ziv v'tifara, that are constantly bringing forth glow and splendor and beauty. Bekol pina she'atem ponim, in every corner that you turn, im dvarim chayim v'kayamim yesh lachem esek, you engaged with matters of life and existence. Tamid atem po'alim pu'ulot nimratzot, you are always performing consequential acts. Besig v'siach, in masaot nefesh, in a process of communication with masaot nefesh ve'yikrat chaim ra'ananim. We are always performing consequential acts, abounding with meaning and the preciousness of vibrant life. B'kol pu'ulotechem atem nifkashim b'nitzotzot meleim chaim ve'or. In everything we do, we meet sparks of light, full of life and light. Sho'afim u'mishtokakim la'alot le'rom ramim, that are aspiring and yearning to rise to the highest heights. Atem ozrim otam ve'hem ozrim otchem. We help them and they help us. Ziv ha'chachma asher atem masigim ein ze tzivim klushim shel eze zaharut ruchanit. This glorious wisdom that we comprehend is not a faint shadow of a spiritual mirage she'ein bo klum, that has nothing, ad shetavo adrisha ve'amadaut alechem, until science and research will explain. No, these glorious wisdom, bnei olam omed, the children of a real world, mitva'adim alechem, sholchim lachem mimerchakim besorot tovot. They're introducing themselves to us, sending us good news from afar, and their well-being contributes to our well-being, and so we arise. And as we rise, we rise to greater heights. We rise to a more noble fellowship, to surroundings of greater pleasure. And let us understand that everything, and here we end, I'll read the Hebrew here as well. Akol choshek homeh v'shoef. Everything is aspiring, longing, yearning, besidur ne'edar bekodesh, with a organization, with a structure that is adorned with a pattern, that is adorned with holiness and girded with beauty. Ne'ezar betifara. Ki lo davar rek hu michem, ki hu chayechem. This is not what we are in, is not empty. This is our life. Ve'or panecha natata lanu Hashem Elokeinu Torat Chaim. With the light of your presence, you have gifted us, Hashem Elokeinu, with the Torah of life, Torat Chaim. So may we be blessed to really experience the HaChayut HaOlamit of the Torah Chaim that we've been blessed to, we've been gifted with life. And Baruch Hashem for that, and it's for us to really bring it to its full splendor and beauty, because everything in life is aspiring and yearning for this, and we are the agents of the transformation. B'mehera b'yameinu, and may our learning bring healing to everyone who needs a healing, for all the reasons that people need healing. And
Is this gift of life? Does this gift of life and all these emanations that we, let's call it imbibe, does that give the individual any special power, any special independent, power, what we might call a skula? We've just gone through the Parsha of Man, and there are those who debate about man, that it could be that magical, quality is something that really God did not want us to think, that we have. That could be tantamount to avodah zarah. So are there borders, that you would conceptualize that Rav Kook is articulating, as if the individual who drinks all this in has independent powers?
There's a beautiful piece where I think I'd rather Rav Kook answer that, with your permission. I think it's right here. No, hold on. Here it is. Oh, let me share it. Hold on. Oh, no, I can't. Okay, so it's I don't. Basically, Rav Kook says, I'll actually, hold on, let me just.
You could just answer.
I'm just going to answer, right, exactly, because he says, he says basically, he says no. He says we, as Tzelem Elokim, we have the capacity to connect with the divine in such a way that we're experiencing the complete freedom of being. That is our destiny as Tzelem Elokim, and we're really to encourage that free self-expression. And therefore he says, let everybody express in truth and in faithfulness whatever their soul reveals to them. Let everybody bring their spiritual creativity from potentiality to actuality without any holding back. Out of such sparks, torches of light will be assembled, illuminating the whole world. Out of each fragment of our inner truth will the great truth emerge. So he was very encouraging of spiritual growth and maximal spiritual growth, understanding that we are at root tov. And as we elevate, as we evolve, then our goodness also improves. And so it's not to be afraid of. And that's the punchline in Torah to Rav Kook. It's the question about the difference between Nazir and Tzvi Yehudas is interesting in this way. The Nazir had a very profound spiritual connection with Rav Kook, but the reason for that is because the Nazir, in his own personal spiritual goals, wanted consciously He wanted to experience Ruach HaKodesh, Nevuah, and that was his commitment. When he met Rav Kook, he understood that Rav Kook was experiencing that which he wanted to experience. And then the Nazir's entire Torah from teachings of Rav Kook is the Sefer Kol HaNevuah, which is return to Israel means the return to our capacity for prophecy. That's the punchline. We leave the whole the process of Torah Sheba'al Peh is superseded by the prophetic presence of God in the return to Israel. That's the Geulah process, and that's the punchline in Torah to Rav Kook.
Rav Yitzchak, I think this is connected to what you're saying now. This idea of everything ascending and to some degree progressing. Professor Tamar Ross famously wrote her book, Expanding the Palace of Torah, based on the idea that this notion of progress is fundamentally, in her view, about equality, that we would naturally progress towards equality. But is that your read of his notion of ascending and progressing, or what would you say is his fundamental kind of barometer of what the ascending and progress moves us towards?
It moves us to the point of perfecting, ending Ra, getting rid of Ra in the world, and the world returning to its complete tov. And that's the piece I'll go into this next week in HaChayut HaOlamit. That's the ending piece that we will overcome. We will fix the chet, and we'll no more death in the world. That's what it's all about.
I guess the question that I was trying to ask is if somebody hypothetically reaches that level, does he have the power of what you're calling nevuah? Or I thought prophecy ended, specifically asking somebody comes to either a Rosh Yeshiva or to a Hasidic Rebbe for a type of bracha, as if to say, does that individual have a special power almost running concurrent with Kutchabrichu to endow that person with a solution? To me, the Misnagid in me sort of opposes that thought, but I sort of hear echoes of it in what you're explaining
I
about Rav
understand
Kook.
that's part of what the Rav Kook revolution is about. Rav Kook is saying in Ashkenaz that made sense. We are no longer in Ashkenaz. We're in Medinat Eretz Israel, and we're returning. There's an evolution going on, and he really defines the evolution and encouraged it, and they're still way ahead of it. It's like he's still way ahead of everybody.
Did Rav Kook believe in multiple neshamot in terms of that transcendence, or he believes in the terms of the tikkun of the neshama coming back and then to collectively making that transcendence, or is there any of that in this mystical writing?
I'd have to look at that specifically. I know in the Nevuchei Hador, the Nazir addresses the Gilgulei Neshamot in there. I'm not sure that Rav Kook spoke about it directly. Rav Kook didn't write about he as much as he. Well, no, that's not true. Take that back. I'll have to look into that. But most of Rav Kook's significant writings were like in a state of inspiration. He wrote his inspirations down.
I had a question about Ba'asher Husham, which you brought at the very beginning, which I needed to ask, because you translated it with the one who is here, I think, with the one in capital suggesting God.
But that's in the pasuk in Breshit.
No, but that's not in the pasuk. My understanding is Ba'asher Husham is about Yishmael. And
God. And then, I see. Ba'asher Husham.
Yes, and so then the Ba'asher Husham actually, could you draw that up, the text? Because it seemed to me it's even more powerful if it's not God, but human beings, wherever they are, right? Then that's cool.
Let me call it up.
Ba'asher Husham, And the idea is that, that's about God seeing us where we are. This is not where it is.
Yeah, well, here in the poem is Ba'asher Hu Sham. In the poem, he means it, I think, as God. That's why there in
So
Bereshit, in the
right.
Bereshit, he says, Shama
So maybe it's
Elohim El Kol Hanar. He heard the
Yeah.
voice of the child of
Ba'asher
where the
Hu
child
Sham,
is.
where the Na'ar is, where the
Where the
Na'ar
child
is.
is. Yeah.
Yes, no, but I think that works. Then maybe there's a play on it in Rav Kook that, God is where, the meeting place between God and where we are. It lent itself, even in the language of the poem, it seemed to me that it was talking about us. But anyway, something to think about, especially since it's quoting that pasuk. And I would imagine Rav Kook understood the way that pasuk is understood. Anyway, something to think about.
I mean, it's an interesting poem, right? But Tov lanetzach, tov l'sha'a, tov l'chol am ba'am, tzofeh letova, velo l'ra'a. Every nation that wants the good, not the bad, and wants the light and the delight, ba'asher hu sham. Yeah.
Where that generation is, where that nation is even. So that becomes more universal, right? I think so. Anyway.
Maybe that's actually that, yeah, Ba'asher, that's also, I'd be very happy for that to be current reality.
Yes, I agree. That I found very powerful. I'm gonna use that tomorrow in a class I teach. So thank you.
Good. No. This is one of his. Listen, Baruch Hashem. I put on the links on the chat, a bunch of links to the two best books, one biography and one Rav Kook's writings, the Kook book, and some other sources of my work with Rav Kook, and that's linked to other texts and
Friends,
videos.
we have time for maybe time for one more question if we have one.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the work of Rav Naor, in which he wrote about the legends of Rabbi Bachana?
Yeah.
Does that get incorporated into some of your presentation?
I don't have that book with me, so I have to, and it's not online yet, so it'd be hard to work with. You're giving me motivation to. It's in Pomerantz. I can get it. Rabbi Betzalel is a good friend. It's and not only that, but his extraordinary translation of haorot uses my image of Rav Kook. He asked to use the image of Rav Kook that I developed. So Betzalel Naor, that's actually, I appreciate. That's a good reminder. Maybe for Shabbos I'll get it. I seem to have quite a bit of more time for learning than I've had like for the last 50 years. These last.
Please send me the bill for the book. I'll be happy to sponsor the cost of the book.
Oh, you're so kind. All right.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Rabbi Yitzchak.